How old are we?
5.
So on number 1, you had to make a little adjustment to figure out your right answer because it told you that that orbit that they've drawn around there is from the surface of the moon. But if you're trying to find that entire equation, then you need the moon included. Luckily, they told you the radius for the moon, so you know what you have to add on. So looking at the values you have there, if you took that 382 that is from the surface of the moon to the edge of the ellipse and you added the radius of 498 on it, that got you 880. If you took the other intercept on the ellipse, the 278, and added the radius of the moon, that got you 776. Oh, so you had a pretty good idea that it was going to be either C or D.
Yeah.
Which one would it be? Think back to the original formula of the ellipse. Does it say x squared over a, or does it say x squared over a squared?
Say x squared over a squared.
Very good, Chase. So that would make that be C. Very good.
Now I know that. Right here.
That's a bum.
Well, Heather, we're off to a great start. Of course.
All right. Number 2, I'm just gonna go through these the way I did them when I worked the test. I solved the second equation for x. So when I did that, that got me, if I subtracted the y, that got me x is negative 9 minus y. So then I had to plug that back into the first equation. The first equation says x squared, so I'm going to have negative 9 minus y squared, or write it twice, plus y squared equals 41. So then I had to FOIL that negative 9 minus y. When I FOILed that, that got me 81 plus 18y plus y squared. Now I've still got another y squared to add on to it, and I got to move that 41 over. So you're looking at a quadratic that says 2y squared, because y squared and y squared is 2y squared, plus 18y. If I subtract the 41, that's plus 40 is equal to 0. Okay, now you could go from there. I chose to take a 2 out of all of it, because then it was easy to factor. If you just reduce all that by 2, y squared plus 9y plus 20 equals 0. Now I know the factors of 20 that add to 9. That's an easy way to factor there. So that's going to be y plus 4 times y plus 5 is equal to 0. So if you have both of those equal to 0 and you solve them, you're going to have a y of negative 4, right? And you're going to have a y of negative 5. Okay, so looking through my choices, A has a y of negative 4, negative 5. B has it. C does not. D does not. So I know it's got to be either A or C. Okay, so to get from where I am to figure out if it's A or C, I'm going to plug those choices in to the original one that I solved here. So if I just take my first -4, -9 minus -4, -9 minus -4 is -5. So that tells me the answer is,
B.
yep, B, B, B.
This goes on and on.
Yeah, the kid. Alright, true or false on 3, what y'all think?
False.
False is correct because it didn't take the opposite signs. Remember on the circle you have to take the opposite signs. The center of that equation would be -8, 2. They didn't do that. Alright, 4, solve by elimination or combination. So what I looked at there, I noticed on number 4, I could get rid of the xy's and the y squareds both if I added. So I'm doing elimination by addition here. So I'm not going to write them both down, just look at them there on your paper. X squared plus x squared is 2x squared. 3xy plus -3xy is nothing, he gone. Y squared plus -y squared is nothing, he gone. 4 plus 4 is 8. So divide by 2, we got x squared is 4. Undo the squared by square rooting, and x could be positive or -2. So if we start looking at potential answers, I always like to put them where they go, so I know what I'm looking for on the right deal. Okay. A, well, never mind, A does have it, but I didn't get any zeros in my x, so I can mark A out. But A is the only one I can mark out, because B, C, and D only has 2's and -2's. So now I got to plug a 2 or a -2 in. When I plugged it in, I plugged it into the first equation. Just going to plug my 2 into the first equation. So it was x squared, so 2 squared. Then it was 3 times x times y, so 3 times 2 times y plus y squared is equal to 4. So if you subtract your 4, you're looking at y squared plus 6y is equal to 0. Now what I would do, you could do quadratic formula on that, but I would take a y out. So then you set both of those equal to 0, y equals 0, y plus 6 equals 0. So when x was 2, y could be 0 or -6. Does that find us a choice yet?
B.
D does not have y 0.
B.
B, yes.
That's a lot. Greg got it wrong.
Alright, 5. I did substitution. The second one's already solved. We got one in here. Alright, I'm going to take the x squared minus 7 and plug it into the y. So I've got the x squared that's already there plus x squared minus 7, and it says y squared, so I'm going to go ahead and write that twice, equals 49. So now I got to FOIL that x squared minus 7 part, bring down my x squared. When I FOILed that, I got x to the 4th minus 14x squared plus 49 is equal to 49. Okay, now you got some like terms there, and I'm going to move the 49 over, so I would have x to the 4th minus 13x squared. 49 minus 49 is nothing. Okay, now this one is a weird one, but it's easy to solve. This has a GCF of x squared, so you're going to take an x squared out. That'll leave you with x squared minus 13. Set both of those equal to 0. X squared equals 0 gets you a 0. X squared minus 13 equals 0 gets you 13. Undo the squared by square rooting could be positive or negative square root of 13. So to line your potential x answers up, 0 comma something, square root of 13 comma something, negative square root of 13 comma something. So I'm looking here for some potential answers, and Caleb is correct. It would have to be A.
I got this one. This one B.
All right, Caleb said number 6 is B. Let's check it out and see. The center of the circle on number 6 would have to be at 2, 0. Look at the equation. Remember, the center of a circle is the opposite sign, so it says x minus 2, so we put a positive 2. There's nothing with the y, so it's 0. So you start looking through those choices for something that has a center at 2, 0. There's only one of them that has the center of the circle there.
7 B.
Slow down. All right, Caleb's ready for 7. If the rest of y'all are ready.
It's B.
Circle has a center at 5, 5. Caleb is right. It does not on number 7. What would the center of number 7 be?
The origin 0,
0, 0. Exactly right.
Mom.
You're on fire.
Like
Number 8. Number 8 again has a center at the origin because there's nothing with the x or the y. So all of those do, you just got to figure out how long the radius is. Remember, the circle is equal to r squared, so it says equal to 36. So our radius would be 6. So it's got to go through 6s all the way around. So you just got to be able to look at those choices and see which ones go through 6s. And it would be D as in dandelion. Boy, makes
Where did you get 6?
square root of 36. You got it, you got it. Alright, true or false number 9. False, correct. Because the y-intercepts would be the square root of 9, which would be 0, 3, and 0, negative 3.
Yep.
Alright, 10 is not a very fair question.
I guess.
Me too.
We're going to get it right using common sense and
That's what I do.
some good stuff.
I guess B.
Yeah,
B's wrong. Is it A?
it is A.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you why though.
Yeah. I don't know.
So
I don't think I can do a portion. Be strong.
Please show me. We had one like this last time.
Yeah, well, that's not very good, but yeah, there was one like this on your assignment. The one on your assignment was more friendly than this one.
No.
Alright, says the roof of a building is in that shape. First off, that's poor design. If you design a roof like that, all the water is going to run to the center and never go off, and the roof's going to start to leak there. But anyway, the equation that they give you is y squared minus 9x squared equals 43. And it's talking about hyperbolas. You see the word there, hyperbola. We know a hyperbola is supposed to equal 1. So we would need to divide this whole equation by 43 to get it to equal 1. So I would have y squared divided by 43 minus 9x squared divided by 43 is equal to 1. Okay? Now, since the y is first, we know this thing is going to have y-intercepts, and that's obvious to you from this drawing that they gave you. You've got that piece going there. There's your y-intercept. Okay, and our y-intercept you get from the square root of 43. Square root of 43 is going to be close to choice B. That's why some people would go with that. It's going to get you about 6.7, or I think it's actually 6.55, so we would have 6.6. But that's how high, that's where that intercept is. The question is asking how tall are those walls? Okay, so maybe, I mean, this is where, what I was telling Michael, this is where your common sense will come into. If so this much is almost 7, how much more would I have to go up here? Look at your choices. Which one would make sense on the choices? Would it be the 300 one? No.
B.
Well, this is B.
Oh.
It would be your A, the 19 point whatever. Now, could you actually figure that out if you wanted to? It would involve you drawing a right triangle there. So you could actually figure it out. They tell you the length of that. I think they said that's 6 meters. So, you know, you could get into some stuff and figure that out, but it's quicker just to use some good sense on that. Somebody in first period, this is another point. Somebody in first period, remember when we learned how to graph these, we had to draw that rectangle with the diagonals? So they thought they could do that, but the deal is the rectangle goes through the intercepts. So the rectangle that you drew would be something like right there, and your diagonals would be something like right there. So those corners aren't even in the rectangle. So that rectangle didn't really help us any. That kind of looks like I just said no to that thing. Put a big X, red X on it. I'm with it. No way, Jose. All right, 11, we're solving the system again. I solved the second equation for X. So number 11, are you looking? So I added the Y to both sides. So it said X equals 1 plus Y. Then I plugged that into the first equation, X squared. So 1 plus Y twice plus Y squared equals 85. And then I had to FOIL that 1 plus Y stuff. So I had 1 plus 2Y plus Y squared. Then bring down that other stuff. So now, Y squared is 2Y squared. Subtract that 85, and 1 minus 85 is negative 84. You could go quadratic formula there if you wanted to. I took a 2 out because it was easier to factor. Factors of negative 42 that add to 1 are 7 and negative 6. So if I set both of those equal to 0 to start thinking about answers, y plus 7 equals 0 gives me a negative 7. Y plus minus 6 equals 0 gives me a 6. Does that let you mark anything out? C doesn't have the signs right. B doesn't have the signs right. D doesn't have the signs right.
Okay.
So it's got to be. Because the 7 had to be negative in the Y, and the 6 had to be positive in the Y.
No, this one I guess. No.
8. 7 had to be in the Y. The second one, the 7 had to be negative, and the 6 had to be positive.
So the opposite sign is doing that?
Because if you set this equal to 0, yes. If Y plus 7 equals 0, that gets you negative 7. Remember that? You remember that.
I do. Just hang on.
Alright, true or false on 12. X-intercepts of that are 4, 0, negative 4, 0.
True.
True! Finally got a true.
False.
True.
13's A.
Alright, 13, we got to figure out which type of conic that is, and the fellas think it's a circle, so let's test them and see.
It is.
What? Alright, we know it's not a parabola because we've got squared on both variables, so we can mark parabola out. Alright, so I need to move the y squared over to the same side with the x squared. So I've got x minus 3 squared. It's being subtracted, so I'm adding it. Alright, so they are correct. This would be a circle at with a center 3, 0 and a radius of 4. Good job, fellas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right. Yes, sir.
Alright, 14. There's a few like this where they ask you to graph it and then put the questions, the choices on the next page, so you got to flip back and forth. Not a fan, but we can deal with it. 14 has y squared first, so I know it's got to be an up and down hyperbola, so I can mark out B and D. Only thing I got to figure out now is if it's supposed to be A or C. Those y-intercepts, it's y squared over 4, so that means that they got to be the square root of that, so that needs to be at 2 and negative 2. So it is C. Good. They kind of do, but A is like between 1 and 2. Can you just Can you see that good? Yeah, it's hard to tell. You're right. 15, and there's a few of these where I just typed them in my calculator. 15, 16, I typed both of those in my calculator, so practice those and make sure you can get them.
Yeah, I typed them.
Good. 15, what did y'all get?
B.
B, and what'd you get on 16?
C.
Now let me tell you this may affect you, this may not. My Algebra 2 classes right now are doing trig, and part of the stuff we did yesterday was graphing trig functions, and sometimes if you remember back to Algebra 2, those don't always show up in your calculator, so we had to go and change the zoom on them. So if you're working on your test tomorrow and your zoom is all whopper-jawed and you're having trouble, first thing to try is zoom standard. That just takes it back to normal. After that, if it's something wrong with the calculator, I'll help you, but I'm not going to help you type it in. You got to be able to get it entered how you want it.
Yeah, I went to graphing and did that today. My window was at like negative point.
Yeah.
25 and then 35.
We were doing that trig stuff in there.
I was like, I don't know. But it is.
Alright, so we are down to 17. This is the one I spent the most time on the whole page. I got a little scratch work going on down there on 17.
What'd you get?
I got C. It says solve the system by the elimination method or combination. So what I did is I took that whole first equation and I multiplied it by 2, because then that let me get rid of both the x squared and the y squared. Okay, so if I multiply the first equation by 2, I would have 2x squared minus 2xy plus 2y squared equals 6. The second equation, I didn't have to change yet. I need to look at it. I just threw it down. It would be, say, 2x squared plus xy plus 2y squared equals 12. Now I can subtract those two equations and get rid of those squares. 2x squared minus 2x squared is nothing. He gone. Negative 2xy minus 1xy is negative 3xy. 2y squared minus 2y squared is nothing. He gone. 6 minus 12 is negative 6. I went a step farther there and divided it all by negative 3, and that got me xy is 2. Okay, then my choice was I solved it for x, so I divided by y. So there's what x is equivalent to. Now I'm going to take that and go substitute it back into one of my original equations. But there are two x's I had to plug it into. I got to plug it into the one that's squared, and I got to plug it into the xy one in both places. I plugged it into the original first equation. Okay, so it had x squared minus x times y plus y squared is equal to 3. Okay, so when we did the x times y, you're going to have those cancel out. So this will make 4 over y squared minus 2 plus y squared is equal to 3. What could I multiply that whole equation by to get rid of the y squared on bottom? Thank you, sir. Y squareds cancel out. You got 4 minus 2y squared. Y squared times y squared will make that one a y to the 4th equals 3y squared. Okay, now we need to clean this up and move that 3y squared over. So, whoa, Nelly Bozo. I got y to the 4th. Negative 2y squared minus 3y squared is negative 5y squared, and a positive 4. That's weird looking because it's got the 4th power, but that's still factorable. Factors of 4 that add a negative 5 are negative 4 and negative 1. This would be y squared and y squared. So you're going to have y squared minus 4, y squared minus 1. Y squared minus 4 is the same as y plus 2, y minus 2. Y squared minus 1 is y plus 1, y minus 1. So now you've got 4 factors to set equal to 0. Those are all y's. If y plus 2 equals 0, it'll be negative 2. If y minus 2 equals 0, it'll be 2. If y plus 1 equals 0, it'll be negative 1. If y minus 1 equals 0, it'll be 1. Okay? So, looking for y's that have all of those. A doesn't have enough. B's got zeros. I didn't get any zeros.
It's C.
It's got to be C. Alright. 18 is D. It actually involves completing the square to solve it mathematically. So what I'm going to do when I write number 18 is I'm going to go ahead and move the x's by each other and then the y's by each other. So my x's, I got an x squared minus 6x. I'm going to leave a little space. And on my y's, I got a positive y squared minus 10y. And I'm going to go ahead and move that 9 to the other side. So I'm set up now. Because remember the formula for a circle, it has x plus or minus something squared and y plus or minus something squared. So we need to be able to make this into one of these. That's what we're going for. Okay? Completing the square. Half of your b, 6 divided by 2 is 3. Square it is 9. So you're going to add 9 to both sides. What's the square root of 9 now? How does this break down? Square root of x squared minus sign square root of 9. Okay? Half of your b, half of 10 is 5. Squared is 25. So we're going to add 25 to both sides. Y squared, square root that. First sign, square root of 25. Negative 9 plus 9 is 0, plus 25 is 25. So what we now know, that's in the right form. The center is the opposite signs, so it would be positive 3, positive 5. Radius, square root of 25. So now, what did you say it was, Caleb?
D.
D, because that's the only one that has the positive, positive center. Last page, 19, I did in my calculator.
It's B.
It is B as in boy. Check that. Make sure you can get what Caleb did on that. True or false on number 20. First period was bad on this one. Mason's correct. It is false. So Caleb, whoever said
I
that.
would have said, yeah, but I thought
It would, the actual radius on that one would be the square root of 7. Right?
it was.
It's not 7 there.
That's right.
Alright, real quick, recap what we did. Several of those, we just plugged the graphs in our calculator. When they had the square roots in them, the radicals in them, we plugged those in our calculator. The solving ones took me the most work. The hyperbolas and ellipses and circles, I just know the equations. So really the only algebraic stuff you'll have to do are those where you got to solve. And like Michael said before class started, if you don't know what else to do, you can always plug the choices in and see if it makes the sentence true or not. But they all got to make it true. That's one key that you can't say, well, one of them worked, that's got to be it. They all got to make it true. Okay? Questions? All right, that'll be it to do.